Well, welcome in Pesky Pole YouTube channel. And I've got PC Replay Baseball pulled up. It's September 86. I'm not there yet, okay, in September, but this is more a discussion about a topic that came up in one of the Facebook groups about as played seasons. And I'm a big proponent of playing as played seasons. And, you know, personal preference here, PC Replay Baseball, I think, does the best job of playing an as played season. And I'm not going to debate what other games out there, and I think it does it the best. Me personally, how they handle it. So if you're not sure, as played simply means that you're playing the actual lineups on a given day. And so I like it for a few reasons. The main reason I like it is I'm a big baseball history nerd guy. I'm the guy that goes on Baseball Reference and looks, to see what happened on April 19th in this day in baseball. And so for me, it's appealing to play the actual game with the actual lineups. My dad will tell me about games he went to as a kid in 1957. It's cool that I can play that game with those lineups that he saw. And then games I saw in person, same thing. Games I saw on TV, and so I like that aspect of it. That's the main reason why I do it. It's also easier too in terms of if you're trying to be realistic with innings pitched, with at bats, and trying to manage that all the time. It just takes away that stuff for you. Now, there are some issues with it though, okay? And this was brought up in the Facebook group. There's a guy playing the 84 Tigers replay, and this is a great example. 84 Tigers blitzed the American League East. I think they clinched. I don't know when they clinched it. I think they clinched it. I mean, they were unreal in April and weren't even close. And they should, when you play a replay, they should win the American League East pretty easily. But sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes it does not happen that way. And so what happened with this guy was the Tigers in real life at the end of 84 were resting their lineup. They're resting their players because they've clinched the division. And the issue is in his replay, um, they were in a pennant race and they're playing their B lineup. And he, asked a question, what do you do? What do you do? And so do you kind of take over and say, well, that's not realistic? They wouldn't be playing. They wouldn't be, Lou Whitaker wouldn't be on the bench. Kirk Gibson wouldn't be on the bench. Alan Tram will be playing right now. This is a must-win game. And of course they'd be playing in that situation. And the reason why they weren't playing was because of the fact they had it clinched or had a huge lead. So personally, and everyone can do it their own way. Okay, personally, if I'm playing as played, I'm going to play as played. And so, how I kind of get around it in my head, because a lot of this is about immersion, a lot of this is storytelling. How I get around it in my head is I tell myself that, you know, Trammell, Whitaker, the Tigers are beat up right now. Okay. They got some injuries. Trammell and Whitaker are out. And if I'm managing the Titans, so I play the game that way. Okay. And the idea being that, they have underperformed during the year. I mean, it's not their fault. These are dice we're throwing here, but they've been unlucky during the year. They've had the dice go against them during the year that for the reason to be not leading the American League East, things are going wrong for them. And so this is one more thing that's going wrong for them. They're beat up with injuries. And maybe the backup guys can give them a lift, You never know. And so I would play it as that way. Now, if I'm managing the Tigers, if I'm managing the Detroit Tigers, um, I'm going to manage, how I do it with the lineup. When a guy has a day off, um, or he's injured, but he's on a roster still, he's whatever it is. Um, I try to be true to what's going on. And so my rule is, and everyone's different now. You can go ahead and sub them out in the first inning and do it that way. Um, but I play it like they're injured, like they can pinch hit only. So if I'm playing the 84 Tigers and Trammell and Whitaker are out, I'm going to say they can pinch hit, but they can't go back in the game. Like they're battling something. They're battling a back or a leg or a hammy. Okay, and so if I'm going to pinch hit for them, I'm going to pinch hit with them, but then I have to have a guy on my bench I can put in their spot, utility guy, to do that with, just to play along with being realistic. When I played the 1941 season with the Red Sox, Ted Williams broke his ankle in spring training, and for much of April, he was on the roster, but he wasn't starting. He would pinch hit here and there. And so when I played the 41 Red Sox, um, I would only use him as a pinch hitter. And after he pinch hit, usually I pinch him for pitchers, okay, and take him out of the game, but I wouldn't put him in left field. I mean, because if he can play left field, he'd be starting, right? I mean, if he could play left field, he'd be in the lineup. The fact is, there's no DH back then, so he can pinch hit only. He's got the bad ankle he's trying to get over. In my '91 replay, I had a situation where, and I think I had a video about this too. Um, the Pirates won the NL East in real life pretty easily too. But in my '91 replay, the Pirates struggled. Okay, and they finished like 4 games out. And the Cubs and the Expos were battling down the stretch, and the Cubs and Expos were not close to winning the NL East in real life. And what happened was, on the last day of the season, I realized that the Cubs had played 3 less games, and the Expos had played 2 less games. Like, in other words, the Cubs were going to play 159, and the Expos were going to play 160. And the Cubs had a half-game lead, and 2 of those games were against each other. And so the Cubs as the season ended, the Cubs had a half-game lead, and as the last day of the season was done, they had a half-game lead. Okay, and so I said, man, but that isn't, is that real? Because if this was really what they were doing, they would play these games, you know. And so the issue is, so I did it. So I went ahead and I scheduled the games. I scheduled the Cubs game, the Expos game, and then of course you can't play as play lineups then because these games don't exist. So I had the AI choosing lineups, and the Cubs ended up winning the division anyway. And then I went back and I kind of kicked myself. Like I shouldn't have done that. I should have said, you know what, the season's over. The Cubs won by a half game. Um, and so I'm glad the Cubs ended up winning because if the Expos would have won, I would have felt like I would have felt like put my not my thumb on the scales, but I went ahead and I deviated from the as played what I'm doing. It wasn't as played anymore. And so luckily the Cubs still won, and so it's fine, but it still bothers me that I did that. And so for me, um, I would go all the way through as played and make up a storyline in your head and do it that way and so forth. So I bring up 86 here real quick and you're looking at the screen the whole time, hearing me talk, like, what the hell is he talking about? So here's a good example. So I'm playing 86 right now. I'm in late April right now. I got a long way to go. But the New York Mets ran away with the National League East. I think won by 20 games, something like that. Okay. So they'll probably win the American League East in my replay. Okay. Now it might not happen, but they probably will. Okay. But there's a chance that they could be in a pennant race. And so September 17th in real life, they clinched. Okay. So they clinched here. They clinched against the Cubs, Gooden against Eckersley. I'm going to show you, I'm not going to play the game. Okay. But I'm going to show you their lineup right here. So the Mets had their everyday lineup. I mean, pretty much. I mean, Hernandez isn't playing. I'm guessing maybe he's hurt or maybe he's getting the day off. Okay. But Magan at first base, that's a pretty good lineup right there. That's a lot of their regulars in there. I mean, Santana's everyday shortstop, Knight's a third baseman for the most part. I mean, Howard Johnson plays some there too. Mookie Wilson plays a lot. Strawberry, Carter, Backman, Dykstra. I mean, Magadan usually doesn't play for Hernandez, right? But pretty much that's pretty legit lineup right there. Okay. So they clinched on this day. So let's go to the 18th. Okay. They're playing Maddox. Okay. Young Greg Maddox. in Shea Stadium, and they're pitching a guy named, I don't know who this guy is, Anderson. Okay. Say this clinched. They're all drunk. They're all hungover. Okay. And here's one: Stan Jefferson, Tim Tuffle, Magadan, Mitchell, Lee Mazzilli, Howard Johnson, Kevin Elster, John Gibbons, and Rick Anderson. Okay. Now imagine if you're playing this and they're in a pennant race with the Cubs. Okay. They're right now, it's neck and neck. It's September 18th. There's what, a week to go in the season, I think. A week and a half to go in the season. And so I can understand why you say, man, if I'm managing the Mets, listen, we need a win today. I need Strawberry in there. I need Carter in there. I need Keith in there. They're all available. Look, they're all available on the screen. But in my opinion, no. This is, hey, if the Mets are in a pennant race at this point in the season, 86 Mets, you know what? Their season has not gone as planned. Their season has not gone the way it is, and this is part of it right now. These guys are nicked up right now. These guys are, whatever. I mean, 86 Mets, good Lord, the stories you can make up in your head. They're in trouble. They got in a bar fight last night, or whatever it is. Okay, they're not playing. And these guys got to step up. Okay. And so you're going to have games like that. Now, the Mets do a pretty good job. I went through this a little while ago. I looked at the Mets lineups from this point on. The Mets do a pretty good job with their lineup. You can't, so looking here, I'm going to look at the next day. So the Mets play the Phillies next. Now, the Phillies were the second place team in there. Okay. So, so imagine if the Phillies are in a spot here. So here's lineup again. So once again, it's not a great lineup. Okay. It's not a great lineup. I mean, you don't have Strawberry in there. You don't have Carter in there. You don't have Keith Hernandez in there. Okay. And so that's the deal. I mean, and that's a storyline. The Mets are banged up. September 18th hits, and the Mets are banged up. Now, if they have a big lead, whatever it is, they're resting guys could have a big lead. Um, but that's how I would go about doing it. That's how I would. Now, the other story. All right, so the next issue is the playoffs. And this is one thing where I know people who play a full replay season of baseball and then like don't even get around to the playoffs. And it's kind of anticlimactic. I mean, for me too, because if you play as played the whole year, now the playoffs you can't really do as played because you have different teams sometimes, but also because there isn't, the actual game there. I guess you could do it if you had the same exact matchups, okay? Um, you can do it that way. But like for instance, when the Cubs won for me in '91, there is no lineup for the Cubs, right? There's no lineup for the Cubs at all for the play, any playoff game in '91. And so this is my only gripe, and I think most games have this issue. It's not a PC replay baseball game issue. I don't like how they always handle their rosters. You can kind of set it up in a way where you can pull, the last roster in there. And then the issue is this, and I messed this up in my 91 playoff, is that I did not, I pulled the rosters from the the most played, the team they played the most with, and it screwed it up, which is why I have to redo the playoffs for the NL on there. Okay, not a big deal. But because the example was Alejandro Pena for the Braves was not on the playoff roster for the Braves in my playoff replay. And of course he was in real life, and that's why the Braves lost to the Cubs in my replay in the playoffs because they had no closer. And so I have to redo that one, and do it. That's a user error. That's me. That's not PC Replay Baseball. But that being said, when I go ahead and put the final roster in there, if you choose a 25-man roster, PC Replay Baseball kind of picks out, does their rosters, I think by who played the most for the Braves, among the people who finished the season. And so Pena was left out again. And I didn't, I caught it before I did it. And so you have to kind of do it with the final, the players who finished with the team, and you have more than 25 guys in the roster. And so it's, it's not great. It's one thing I wish I'd fixed, or I wish I had a way you could edit that. You can edit the playoff rosters. Um, I wish you could do it that way. That's my one gripe. I think they have to put more time into the playoffs. And I don't think and I think the reason they don't do it is because of, like I said, I think most people don't spend much of their time on the playoffs. They're playing the season and doing those things. So that's kind of the issue with as played as well. As you get in the playoffs, now suddenly it's not as played anymore. So that's it. So anyway, that was my kind of spiel of as played and kind of how I do things and everything and so and kind of the dilemmas that come up when you're playing these great games. So thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.